The Gosselin family from Jon and Kate plus 8 appeared perfect on television: 8 children, a big home, and what seemed like charming, organized chaos. But behind those cheerful scenes, something far more troubling was taking place. Now, Hannah Gosselin, daughter of Jon Gosselin, is bravely coming forward after years of silence. She's finally ready to reveal the truth about what really went on when the cameras weren't filming. No more staying quiet. No more protecting the people who caused her pain. What she's sharing isn't gossip, it's the raw, unfiltered truth. From secret journals to courtroom drama and a carefully managed media image, this story lays bare everything Hannah has revealed, and why it's so important that people hear it. Kate forced her children to take sides, and Hannah believes she chose the wrong one. To outsiders, it looked like another dramatic tabloid custody battle in a family the public thought it already understood. A teenage girl leaving her mother's home to live with her estranged father? Many assumed it was manipulation, rebellion, or both. That's the version most believed. But it wasn't the truth. Years later, Hannah is speaking out, not with scandal or outrage, but with something even more powerful: honesty. It didn't go viral. It didn't make headlines. But it changed everything. She's risking everything to tell the real story. And when people hear it, they may realize they had it all wrong, about her, about Jon, and maybe even about Kate. Once the truth is clear, the real question isn't why she left, but how she managed to stay for so long. Hannah didn't abandon her family, she escaped the version of it that was destroying her. She didn't run away. She ran toward the only parent who wasn't yelling. What happened off camera was far worse than anyone imagined. The show portrayed a bustling, loving household: 8 kids, one overwhelmed mom, doing her best. But Hannah remembers something else entirely: total control. So much control, in fact, that she couldn't even use the bathroom without permission. If the cameras weren't ready, neither was she. Days were split into segments according to filming needs. Lunches were rehearsed. Car rides were planned. Even simple chores were staged like scenes from a scripted show. There were times when emotions weren't just captured, they were staged. Crying? Do it again for the camera. Not dramatic enough? Try harder, with more tears. These weren't suggestions, they were commands. The kids weren't living freely. They were performing constantly. If you couldn't act on cue, you were ruining the scene. That's when the yelling would start, not from producers, but from Kate herself. When a child stumbled over a line or didn't smile on command, filming would stop. Voices were raised. The tension was unbearable. Those moments vanished from the footage. But they were never forgotten. This wasn't discipline, it was training. According to Hannah, this wasn't an isolated incident, it was a pattern. She says the production crew saw it happening. She believes they knew. But instead of stepping in, they protected Kate. In post-production, the footage was edited to look neat and gentle. The anger and fear were cropped out. By the time it aired, it resembled a structured household. But Hannah says what it really was fear. The image of a large, close-knit family became a marketable brand. And keeping that brand intact meant hiding anything that didn't fit the narrative. If a child hesitated, or didn't smile during a shoot, it wasn't just seen as a bad mood, it was a problem. And problems needed to be fixed before the next take. Hannah remembers one moment clearly: a sibling flinched during filming. No tantrum. No tears. Just a small mistake in timing. The response? They were yelled at until they broke down in tears, then comforted just enough to film a usable take. This is the part no one saw. Not in the promotional clips. Not in the behind-the-scenes extras. Just kids slowly losing their privacy, their freedom, and even their sense of safety, all for a few more polished minutes of television. To the audience, it looked like a loving family. But to the children, it felt like constant performance. Every smile was rehearsed. Every breakdown timed. Every unscripted moment erased. And behind it all, Hannah says, Kate kept a journal, recording things about them, and used it against them. Hannah Gosselin's memories of growing up in Kate's home aren't just filled with the harsh glare of camera lights, they carry something far more disturbing. According to Hannah, Kate kept meticulous journals on each child. But these weren't typical notes about childhood milestones or joyful moments. Instead, they were detailed logs of every mistake, every act of disobedience, and even the kids' emotional states. The goal wasn't to help guide her parenting, it was to justify her actions, especially when it came to discipline. It wasn't until Hannah got older that she began to understand the weight of those journals. One of the most shocking discoveries was finding her own name next to the word rebellious. At the time, she didn't fully grasp the meaning. But as she matured, she realized how damaging that label truly was. For Kate, any sign of independence or defiance was seen as something that needed punishment. The journals served as a running list of offenses, ammunition that could be used against her children whenever necessary. What Hannah describes goes beyond normal parenting. These notes weren't harmless observations. They were used as tools to maintain control, and when the cameras stopped rolling and the curated public image needed protection, Kate used them like weapons. The journals weren't private reflections, they were transformed into documents that justified strict, often harsh, punishments. And when the Gosselin family's private issues became public, these records found their way into courtrooms. They were presented as evidence in legal battles, supporting Kate's image of a misunderstood yet firm mother simply trying to keep order. In these writings, Hannah wasn't seen as a daughter. She was portrayed as a rebellious case, someone who needed to be corrected. Her actions were constantly observed, picked apart, and recorded. The more she resisted, the more her behavior was treated as a problem that had to be fixed. It became a never-ending cycle of control, one that didn't allow space for spontaneity or the freedom that childhood should offer. This wasn't just about discipline, it was about constructing an image of perfection, one that Kate believed should never be questioned. For Hannah, discovering the word rebellious in those journals marked a turning point. It helped her realize that her fight for independence had always been a struggle. She wasn't just pushing back against rules, she was resisting an entire system of control, one that had been carefully documented and used to break her spirit. Simply being herself had become a punishable act in Kate's eyes. Through the journals, every sign of resistance was recorded and weaponized. To the public, they painted a picture: I was troubled. Here's the proof. After Hannah left Kate's custody, the media quickly picked up a narrative that painted her as difficult and defiant. Stories emerged portraying her as a troubled teenager, possibly dealing with behavioral issues. But Hannah says this version of events was entirely false, just a media creation designed to damage her reputation. There was no truth behind claims that she was a problem child. It was simply a story crafted to support a broader narrative. According to Hannah, when she moved in with her father Jon, the public perception shifted. Her decision was no longer seen as a young girl searching for peace but as a rebellious move by an out-of-control teen. The tabloids were quick to label her, but the truth was very different. She had no medical diagnosis, no therapy, no professional support, just rejection. Hannah believes the media crafted this version of her to explain why she left Kate's home, framing her actions as defiance rather than a cry for a more peaceful life. The way the media portrayed Hannah as a troubled teen was far removed from her actual experience. She had no history of extreme behavioral issues, certainly nothing that justified the harsh labels attached to her. Unnamed sources and tabloid speculation referred to her as rebellious without ever once citing any professional evaluation or diagnosis. These labels were nothing more than tools to explain away her choice to leave a home where she felt suffocated. What's more, this narrative didn't just hurt her, it isolated her. Hannah had no support system to help her through the emotional fallout. The public's perception of her added a layer of stigma she didn't deserve. Instead of receiving help, she was cast aside. Her struggle turned into fodder for tabloid stories. Every attempt to reach out to communicate with her siblings was met with silence, a silence born of fear, not animosity. The pressure to remain loyal to Kate and the family's image was overwhelming. Those who dared to step away risked being painted as the villain. In the absence of support, Hannah had to navigate her new life with Jon alone, while the media painted her as someone unworthy of sympathy. The truth, she says, is simple. She wasn't troubled, she wasn't difficult, she was just trying to survive in a situation that had become unbearable. The siblings who stayed are not allowed to speak. After leaving her mother's home, she tried reaching out to the siblings who stayed behind. What she found wasn't distance, it was silence. Long, deliberate silence. One text came back after weeks, saying, "I can't talk about this. Please stop." That was all she got, not a conversation, not a memory shared, just a shutdown. She now believes that silence isn't natural, it's manufactured. Some of the siblings are still under restrictive agreements, official NDAs or verbal warnings, making it clear they're not to discuss family matters under any circumstances. Kate's team has allegedly operated this way for years, using gag orders to keep household details locked away. Even staff, babysitters, and friends weren't allowed to speak publicly without risking legal threats. That climate of fear didn't just stay behind closed doors, it showed up in public too. Over the years, there have been countless awkward moments involving the Gosselin family, but few were more revealing than the Today Show interview featuring Kate and her then 13-year-old twins, Mia and Cara. The segment was meant to offer a light-hearted family update. Instead, it turned into a live display of control. When the girls hesitated to speak, Kate snapped, "Mia, your words. It's your chance, spit it out." She then tried to cover for them, claiming they were fine, as Mia, clearly uncomfortable, replied that her mother had already said everything for her. Even co-host Savannah Guthrie later admitted the moment made her uneasy. To Hannah, moments like that aren't just cringeworthy, they're familiar. She believes the same pressure to present a unified, cheerful front, even when it doesn't match reality, was ever present in the household. Whether it was on TV or in private, she says the message was always clear: don't contradict the narrative. To her, it's not a question of loyalty. She doesn't believe her siblings are protecting Kate because they agree with her, she believes they're afraid. Afraid of what they've been told will happen if they open their mouths. Whether it's legal pressure or emotional manipulation, they've been trained to equate silence with safety. She also points to the way the family dynamic was weaponized, the way Kate kept detailed notes on each child's behavior, not just for court, but as a way to build a case against them in real time. It created an atmosphere of constant scrutiny. Even after leaving that environment, some of the siblings may still be carrying the fear that anything they say will come back to hurt them, or someone they love. She says she understands why they don't respond. That doesn't make it easier. One of the hardest truths she's come to accept is that growing up together doesn't mean they'll walk the same road after. For the ones who stayed, there are layers of pressure, some legal, some emotional, that make open communication nearly impossible. And when the narrative is controlled by a parent with access to media, lawyers, and a long history of tight public messaging, speaking out starts to feel dangerous. He didn't try to rewrite history. He didn't blame everyone else. He told her that he should have protected her and others sooner. Jon told her he stayed in the public eye far too long, thinking he could manage the fallout, the fame, the media chaos, the custody war. It swallowed them up. He said he should have walked away earlier, pulled the kids out, and shut the cameras off for good. But back then, he was scared, not just of Kate but of the court system, of public backlash, and of losing the little access to his children that he had left. He didn't fight as hard as he could have, and he lives with that every day. She doesn't paint him as a hero. He didn't always get it right. But there was one thing he never did: he never lied to her about who he was or what went wrong. While the world turned their family into a spectacle, Jon eventually chose truth over image. He stopped trying to win the public narrative and focused instead on rebuilding trust with the kids he could reach. She remembers asking him once why he didn't take Kate back to court, why he didn't fight for all 8 of them. His answer wasn't dramatic, it was tired. He said he didn't think he had a chance, that he was drained financially and emotionally, and feared that pushing harder would just make things worse for the kids still in her custody. She didn't like the answer, but she respected it. It was real. Their bond today isn't built on perfection, it's built on those conversations, on seeing that he regrets not shielding them sooner, not stepping in when the red flags were obvious. He admits he should have known better. He also recognized that what he ultimately did, showing up, listening, and telling the truth, was a good starting point. When she compares the silence she got from others with the transparency she got from him, it's clear who tried to make it right. "He's not perfect," she says, "but he didn't lie to me." And after everything, that honesty became its own form of protection, maybe not in the past, but definitely now. I watched producers look away as we broke down. She doesn't flinch as she recalls it. The boom mic stayed up, the cameras never cut, and the producers, adults hired to watch over them, stood still while the children broke down in real time. Emotional meltdowns, punishments behind closed doors, even moments of physical discipline, it all unfolded within arm's reach of the crew, and still the red recording light stayed on. She remembers the cold professionalism of it all, how the camera operators would reset for the next wholesome scene just minutes after one of them had been disciplined or humiliated in front of the whole crew. One moment they were crying in a bedroom, next they were seated at the kitchen table pretending to laugh over pancakes. No one asked if they were okay. No one told the director to stop. They watched everything, she says, and they kept filming like it was normal. What stung more than the punishments was how the show framed the aftermath. It wasn't documentary-style transparency, it was staging. Any signs of conflict were edited out, replaced with B-roll of hugs or birthday parties. The producers weren't neutral observers. They were active architects of a false reality. She says there were times when she tried to pull away, to opt out of filming after a punishment, but it didn't matter. The schedule always came first. They'd say, "We just need 5 more minutes or we won't use this if you don't want us to," she recalls. But they always used it. And if you said no too many times, it was taken as an attitude problem. Even the house didn't feel like home. People think I ran away. I didn't. I ran to the only parent who wasn't screaming. That's how Jon Gosselin finally broke her silence, not in court, not through lawyers, just her voice, unfiltered. And she's done. She's done keeping the peace for people who only ever saw her as a part of their story, not her own. She admits there were years when she believed staying silent would protect her family. She hoped that by not speaking out, she would avoid the fallout. But silence only gave room for a different narrative to take shape, one that erased her pain and replaced it with an image of a troubled child, a version that wasn't real. They never wanted to hear her truth. They just wanted her to play the part. She's no longer willing to play along. The truth was no one cared about her trauma when the cameras weren't rolling. Every time she broke down, every time she felt the sting of unfair discipline or the pressure of a family moment, those producers were there, rolling cameras. But when the cameras stopped, they didn't step in to help. They looked away, as if the real moments were too raw, too inconvenient. But now it's no longer up to them to decide when the truth is told. She's telling it herself. And she's done protecting the people who did her harm. She says, "If this ruins me, fine. But you must know what they did." It's not about ruining anyone, she clarifies. It's about exposing the truth that was hidden. It's about saying out loud what so many were too afraid to hear. The cost of staying silent wasn't just emotional. It was physical. It was mental. And it was something she had to live with every single day. And while it may have seemed easier to stay quiet and protect others, she now realizes it was only she who suffered in the end. This is the end of her silence. She is ready to let the world know what was kept hidden behind the cameras. The time for protecting others at the cost of her own well-being is over. This is her truth, and no one gets to rewrite it anymore. Who do you believe in this family saga? Share your opinion in the comments.